This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
I survived 9 months in captivity, and I've spent my life exploring how other people survive what should have destroyed them. I'm Elizabeth Smart, and these are the Survivor Files. Every week, I'm with survivors who lived through the unthinkable, abducted, stalked, controlled, and nearly silenced. These are stories about what it takes to make it out alive. Listen to the Survivor Files with Elizabeth Smart on the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
If your bookshelf and your For You page are equally important to your personality, welcome home. Pro Society is a weekly podcast that's part book club, part group chat for anyone who thinks Pride and Prejudice and Love Island deserve the same level of discourse. Each week, we're connecting the dots between books, the internet, and pop culture with your favorite writers, book talk creators, and plenty of overthought opinions. Yeah, I'm obsessed. Listen to Pro Society on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Did you hear the new episode of the Hey Jonas podcast?
We are at D23, so we'll see who stops by.
The cast of Frozen stopped by. Kristen Bell, Josh Gad, and Adina Menzel.
I auditioned for Frozen.
What?
For Kristoff. They said, okay, what are you going to be singing today? I said, I don't know.
That must have been why you didn't get it.
That's probably why.
Plus, John Stamos, Hayden Christensen from Star Wars, and more.
And I guess I can share that...
No way.
Listen to the latest episode of Hey Jonas on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
On the new podcast, Solita, we share the messy reality of traveling alone as a woman.
I can wait 4 hours for the next bus, or this random dude is offering me a ride on his motorcycle. I chose option B.
I'm Julie Pinheiro, and I travel by myself because it's a rare space where I can say yes without asking anyone else first. I'm on a mission to reclaim the word solita, trading the pity for possibility. Listen to Solita on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This show contains mature content and adult themes. It may not be suitable for young audiences.
And the mysterious death of actor River Phoenix is also shaking the film community tonight. The 23-year-old Phoenix collapsed early this morning and died a short time later. It happened outside a West Hollywood nightclub.
From Variety and iHeart Podcasts, this is Variety Confidential, the life and legend of River Phoenix. I'm Tatiana Siegel, executive editor of film and media at Variety. In the first 2 episodes, we explored River's rise to fame, his groundbreaking films, and how the filming of My Own Private Idaho set the actor on a dangerous path. Today, we will uncover the final days of River's life up until that fateful night in October 1993, when Hollywood lost one of its brightest stars. Let's listen to this interview from the early 90s.
How do you see yourself fitting in with the younger Hollywood acting?
I don't see myself. Boy, I wonder what that means. Selves. Yeah, a few of those guys in me. I don't see any of them in the perspective or in the limelight idea of Hollywood, or I really don't ever want to get that objective or self-conscious of, my place in this world concerning showbiz,
By 1993, River Phoenix's struggles with substance abuse had become an open secret within Hollywood. But the actor kept taking on more projects, even as one of his closest friends, Matthew Ebert, begged him to take a break and focus on sobriety. Despite his friends' pleas, River began shooting Dark Blood that fall. The twisty thriller co-starred Jonathan Pryce and Judy Davis. Matthew remembers River calling him after a difficult day on set.
He called me during that time, and there's a horrible thing that happened between him and Judy Davis. And she had just read him the riot act one day. And he really admired Judy very much. And it just crushed him. I remember talking to him about it, and he was just devastated by what she had said and what he could no longer control. And I thought to myself, why is no one in that production saying, dude, we're gonna get you some help. We're gonna close down. We're gonna start over. Judy was very disciplined. I think she was trying to be hard love. She was being tough love. You couldn't not know he was using because he was a mess. He would come to set literally fucked up, speedy. He's not the same guy. There was no support for him to get sober. It wasn't, hey, this is really an illness. We got to figure out how to quietly and calmly, how do you do that with a huge celebrity in 1990, 91, 92? How do you do it without the media and everything on top of it back then? How do you do it in a culture that only wants to shame you, that only wants to point out, oh, he's so healthy. Now look at him. I guess he's not so healthy. I guess he's really a scumbag. He's not a vegan. He's a heroin addict. So it gave the whole narrative to anyone who was jealous, and we know how Hollywood is. You know, if you're up, somebody's always got a shiv out. In the last year of his life, I was really trying to stay sober, and he would call me and like, let's go do this thing, come see. And I really had to avoid it. I had to avoid him. It was heartbreaking to me now that I couldn't see him because I was trying to clean up.
River died before Dark Blood was finished. The film has never been seen in theaters outside of a few film festivals.
The speed with which River descended and died, I've never seen anyone go that fast. Never. In many years now of counseling people and being a sponsor, and many, many years sober, I've never seen anyone deteriorate so quickly in my life.
In 1993, River Phoenix celebrated the Halloween holiday at the Viper Room, located on Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles. The nightclub and music venue, partly owned by actor Johnny Depp, quickly became a hotspot among Hollywood's most popular young stars. River was there with his girlfriend Samantha Mathis, brother Joaquin, and sister Rain. It was meant to be a night of celebration, but it ended in tragedy. Michelle Sobrino Stearns, Variety's CEO and group publisher, was there that night.
He was a heartthrob, but he also had a cool factor. He was the coolest guy in entertainment. And I just remember seeing him sitting there. I mean, we were all young women. We all had crushes on River Phoenix. He was one of the biggest stars in the country, if not the world. He had a massive fan base, and we were thrilled to be in the same room as River Phoenix. I didn't think that this, unfortunately, something would happen, like him passing away.
What do you remember when you saw him?
We were out. It was Saturday night. It was October 30th, 1993. It's a big night in LA. Halloween is a big deal. Halloween was actually the next day, but everybody was celebrating. It was Saturday night, and it was vibrant and exciting, and we were all in costumes. And, you know, when you're young, you really do it up. So somebody from the Viper Room came over and invited us to bypass the line. And this is one of those fun LA moments that we took advantage of. And so we did. And I remember walking in and seeing people in costumes, and it was just fun, and music was blasting and people were drinking, and it was just very exciting and very fun. It was highly exclusive. We didn't even think we would try. It was that exclusive. And when we were invited and escorted in, I just remember it being, and I didn't expect it to be fancy. It was actually gritty, and I loved that. It was like music was blaring, and everybody kind of seemed to know each other. And it was a very, from today's standards now that I'm in the industry, it was very Hollywood, if you will. Everybody kind of knew each other. Everybody was talking with each other, and I felt comfortable, strangely, even though I didn't know anyone in the room and I was young. Almost everybody in that room was highly, highly intoxicated. It was a bar, and it was a very fun party. It was a Halloween party.
Did it surprise you at all what you saw?
Yeah, it surprised me. Of course, you see somebody in all these movies that you love, and you picture them differently than sitting on a couch. But it was obviously him. We were all excited to see him, but he looked tired, and we just assumed that, like everyone else in that room, he had had a few too many drinks. The Viper Room was that cool place that all the celebrities hung out, and it was private. And to your point, we weren't running around with phones taking pictures of each other and posting it on social media at the time.
So how'd you find out the next day that he had passed away?
I think I remember hearing about it on the news. I actually remember my parents talking about it. River Phoenix was an incredible actor. So even though all of us young women were in love with him, he spanned all generations and people admired him for being a tremendous actor. And I remember my parents talking about it. I was horrified. My girlfriends and I called each other, and it was just very, very sad.
Yeah, had such a career ahead of him.
Yeah, he was tremendous.
A Variety report published on November 8, 1993, reads as follows. Though it's been said that River Phoenix's band was going to play at the Viper Room in West Hollywood when he died early Sunday morning, they didn't. It's more likely he was there to see the band that did. Called P, the combo consisted of Flea of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, frontman Gibby Haynes of the Butthole Surfers on vocals, Tom Petty keyboardist Benmont Tench on organ, actor and Viper Room employee Sal Jenko on drums, and the unlikely guitar duo of Al Jorgensen, ministry and producer of Nirvana's latest effort, In Utero. The actor club owner Johnny Depp. Perhaps the eeriest moment of the evening came during the second song, when Haynes' impromptu vocals turned into a meandering ramble about REM's Michael Stipe and River Phoenix.
Okay, calm down a little bit, okay? What's the address where you need us? It's Sunset and Larrabee. It's at the Viper Room.
Variety reported at the time that River was leaving the Viper Room at about 1 a.m. when he fell to the ground, adding that friends reported that the actor had been acting strange. He was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, where he was pronounced dead at 1:51 a.m. On November 15th, the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office confirmed to Variety that River had died of a drug overdose. Toxicology tests later showed lethal levels of morphine, heroin, and cocaine. Traces of marijuana, Valium, and over-the-counter cold medication were also found. His death was ruled accidental. The actor's passing sent shockwaves through Hollywood and beyond. The news of his passing reached the front page of Variety, which called him, quote, one of the most versatile and prominent of contemporary young actors, end quote. Variety's executive editor Brent Lang recalls the response from the Hollywood community in the weeks following the actor's death.
Well, I think in a lot of ways his death, because it was so shocking, is analogous to what happened with John Belushi, where you had this kind of blazing talent that their flame was sort of extinguished at such a young age. The impact was really seismic. And it was a wake-up call, too, I think, for people, that if you played around in a certain kind of pool with a lot of very, very dangerous drugs, this was something that could end up happening to you. He was both an inspiration for a lot of people in the way that he acted on screen and his kind of magnetism, his natural sort of innate charisma, but he was also a cautionary tale about the perils and the price of fame. And if you look at kind of how people responded in real time, I think there was sort of a generational shift there that happened after. I don't have evidence of this, but I would assume that a lot of people who were sort of moving in the path of doing really, really dangerous drugs might have reconsidered that after what happened to him.
River's longtime friend Matthew Ebert still remembers getting the call.
I got a call from a fellow actor in my own private Idaho. He was in tears. I was like, what's going on? River died. Totally remember it. You don't forget something like that. I felt terrible. I felt ashamed that I hadn't worked harder to get him out.
The outpouring of grief highlighted the profound impact he had on those who knew him off camera and those who admired his on-camera work from afar.
He was definitely an environmentalist. He came from sort of a hippie family. He was a vegan before people really knew what vegans were. And I think that was also sort of shocking to people because he seemed to have this kind of clean living persona. And I know that people in the industry knew that he was having drug issues, but the general public was shocked to discover that that was something he was grappling with at the time. because of his kind of persona.
Matthew Ebert recalls taking River's ashes to the Phoenix family. During that trip, Matthew remembers feeling angry with River's team and those around him who could have prevented River's death somehow.
After he died, I went to Micanopy, where the family is. I spent 6 weeks there. I brought his ashes home to his mother. Never forget that as long as I live. I went with his sister and we brought him home and she cradled that like a baby, that urn. Never forget that as long as I live. Or what it was like to hear he was dead. And he's gone, like just gone. Like that. It's so fast. Never ever saw somebody move so quickly from playful drug use to death. And it's because you have all this money, you have all this power, you have a huge machine in the studio. Nobody's saying, chill, like, you know, that's an agent's job. That's really like your manager and your agent's job, is to watch out for your health and your welfare. That, there's no other place to put that. Your agent, your manager, your team, the people around you, they're responsible when that happens. That's your job, to protect that person when the pressures and everything from the outside are killing them. You know, that is why I was so upset with the team, because it was so obvious, it was so self-evident. All you had to do was go sit in the rushes. You'd see a completely different person on that screen than you did 3 years ago. There was all this stuff and all these pressures. You take all these different rays of light and you put it on you shine a light on it and you realize there was all these different things working to make this perfect storm. There were all these different pressures, not only from the drugs and the people and the community and the study, your friends. Then as now, if you're a celebrity, somebody's going to throw you a bag. Somebody's going to do, people want, it's currency. Back then, it was the currency of cool. You could go, I could take them to see a band, or it was everywhere. The night of the Viper Room, everywhere. You want something? Here it is. And nobody's filtering it and saying, back then we didn't have fentanyl, but certainly you could mix cocaine and heroin in a bag and kill somebody like that. And it went so fast.
Nearly a week after River's death, Variety reported that simultaneous funeral services were held for River. His family hosted one in their home in Gainesville, Florida, while another private service was held in L.A., organized by River's A Night in the Life of Jimmy Reardon co-star Ione Skye. Matthew, can you describe the funerals? How well attended were they?
I went to L.A. and went to one or two services there. I remember all the young actors were there, like Ethan Hawke, I think, was there, and a bunch of other. And I spoke a little bit there. There were a lot of people there at the farm, at the compound. And I wouldn't say there was there was definitely like a service and all that, but there wasn't like very non-traditional outdoor. And my time there, I remember trying to take care of his father, who was really in bad shape. And I would attend to his father. I'd soak his feet, put him to bed. His father was really in bad shape. The whole family was in bad shape. I stayed 6 weeks. And you cry every day, you're just like, oh God. They're like, what are we going to do? I don't really remember. I remember the vibe around everybody by the water, but I think I was just too emotional to really lock in on any of it. Like, it all just seemed like a nightmare, like a weird dream. To say that he was, it just seems so corny to say all the stupid shit people say about him, but it's really true. No one else was like him. Nobody on that set, no one had what he had. River was really at the peak, what would have been the peak of his power. And without those drugs, he'd still be at the peak of his power.
In 1993, River Phoenix's death shocked Hollywood and the world. Very rarely has his then-girlfriend Samantha Mathis spoken about him. Samantha, who was with River when he died, details her memories, including co-starring in The Thing Called Love, his last film that was released.
And I know you've talked about it, but for many years you did not talk about River, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Like decades, like 2 decades, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm very protective of his memory and his family and my memories. So I feel it's a really delicate matter, and there's some things I want to keep for myself.
I guess I'll start with heading into This Thing Called Love. You did not know River before signing on, correct?
We had met ever so briefly in a nightclub when we were both 19. Obviously, I was very aware of who he was. He was really one of the greatest actors of our generation. But no, we didn't know each other when I signed on to the movie.
Okay. So heading into the film, what were your expectations and how did they ultimately turn out to be different than what you were expecting?
I don't know. It's hard to speak to what my expectations were in 1993 or 1992 when I was 22 years old. I mean, I had seen most of his work and found him to be extremely compelling and iconic and really inspiring. And quite frankly, though I knew who Peter Bogdanovich was, it was really River that compelled me to say yes to the movie.
What were your first impressions when you did meet River face to face?
I mean, he was dazzling. He was just dazzling. He had that spirit. He was feisty and smart and quick and present. He was such a present person and a bit of mischievousness to his personality, with a kind soul and a true artist. He was a true artist. He was very impressive.
People often describe him and other actors that they're very generous with how they allow you to, as the co-star, to, have your breath and space in the scene. Was that kind of how it worked in terms of how you played opposite one another and off of one another?
Obviously, we're talking about 1992. So it's in some ways really hard for me to speak with definitively about what my experience was shooting that movie with him. What I do remember clearly is that he was incapable of being dishonest in his work. And that challenged me in a way that I found really exciting and also terrifying. I was not a confident performer at that age and not as in tune with my instrument as he was. And it made me, I hope, a better actor, because he challenged me to be really present in the moment and to be spontaneous and to really react to what was happening. And I think that at that point, I was less confident to be able to act in that way and more someone who plotted out what I was going to do, And so he was exciting and generous. And it also felt a little dangerous in a really vital way that makes something pop on the screen. And we obviously had great chemistry. So that was also all there on camera. We were taken by each other and enjoyed each other.
Do you remember where it was in production, like midway, towards the beginning, towards the end, when you realized, like, we're in love, or I'm starting to fall in love with this person?
It's complicated. It's complicated. I can't say exactly when it happened, but, unfortunately, I was with someone else at the time that it happened. And so it was messy. But it was also something that was undeniable between the two of us. Eventually we did end up together.
Okay. What was the most memorable scene looking back all these years? And what do you remember from it? Kind of take me back to it.
I mean, there are many memories that I have that are so fond. I don't know which one is the most There's a scene between River and I in the back of a pickup truck where we're supposed to be sitting outside of Graceland. And it's just such a charming scene between the two of us, getting to really let the scene breathe and be with each other and be under the stars in a romantic moment, and to just be with him and have this sort of languid quality of the scene where we could really find our beats was really exciting. But also this whole cast was amazing, right? I mean, we had Dermot Mulroney and we had a then unknown Sandra Bullock, and there was an electric energy between all of us on set together that was really exciting. River thought that Sandy was a star. I remember him saying that to me. She's going to be a big star. I remember it so clearly. And he was right. Yeah.
He was.
Yeah. He could see it in her. Yeah.
And it took a while for her to get those roles that really could show her amazing range as an actress. But
well, I think that doing the thing called Love gave her the film that helped to get her speed. That was a moment in time where her life completely changed. Yeah. And we could all see it. I mean, she was also had this sort of shiny spirit, this undeniable spark of, in her case, like a great sense of humor and ability to just be fearless and make a complete fool out of herself. She could make fun of herself and had a sense of humor about herself and was just adorable. She was just undeniably adorable. So it was a very exciting thing to see her ascend into tremendous success.
did River have a great sense of humor? Because if so, that would be kind of surprising. He always seemed like very sensitive and somewhat introverted, but that would be interesting to know. Did he have a good sense of humor?
Oh, he grew up in a big family. I don't think you can grow up in a big family with a lot of kids without having a sense of humor about yourself or a sense of playfulness. At least that was true of his family. They're incredibly loving, but also playful. He, as an actor and as a musician, was incredibly playful. And he had a mischievous quality. He was a very intelligent person, and his mind was quick.
So, Samantha, which of River's films would you point young audiences and new generations of fans to? Maybe people who aren't familiar with his work.
Well, of course, My Own Private Idaho was an extraordinary performance and an extraordinary movie. So anyone who's interested in seeing a really powerful, daring film with really bold work, that I would highly, highly suggest. Running on Empty was something that left an indelible mark on my life. I was 18 and he was playing a young man in a family that were activists who were on the run for being involved in a political action where someone was killed. He and Martha Plimpton played boyfriend-girlfriend in that, and their chemistry was just, it was gorgeous. It was just, they were so alive together and beautiful together, and there was a beauty to the dynamic that was created with Christine Lottie and Judd Hirsch as his parents, and what that family was like. That as a child of a single parent, I just wanted to be in that family, even though they were on the run. But his journey as a young man conflicted in that piece about whether to stay with his family or to go off and make his own life was just searingly painful and beautiful in his portrayal. So those are two movies that really stand out to me. I know he had a great connection with Harrison Ford when he made Mosquito Coast. I know that they really adored each other. Dan Aykroyd was a friend of his until the end, and someone he adored, just loved so much. He worked with a lot of iconic people, for sure.
His pace of working was actually kind of intense. And there was this sort of, like most people would, I guess, take a longer period of time in between movies. Do you think there's any accurate from your perspective?
I mean, I only knew him for the year and a half that I did, so I can't speak to the length of his career and what speed he was working. He was very passionate about the work and was obviously in great demand. He had been meeting with Agnieszka Holland about doing a movie together right after we finished. There were many things that were of interest to him. But after we wrapped the thing called Love, we spent a month together on vacation. So it wasn't like he wasn't capable of doing that. And he also spent a great deal of time with his family, who obviously was very important to him down in Florida. He had certainly been working at quite a pace, and he started working at a very young age. And we had definitely had conversations about taking a pause and our mutual interest in perhaps going to college.
How do you see Rivers' legacy as an actor and how he maybe influenced the generation that came after him?
Well, he was undeniably one of the most talented, if not the most talented young man of his generation. I think he challenged all of us to be a better actor and to be a better human, because he was also an activist who was quite outspoken about the environment. He was so ahead of his time. I'm sure that he was and continues to be a tremendous inspiration to his brother, who I find to have startlingly talent, so equally present and daring and alive in his work. And for those of us who knew him then and worked with him or experienced just viewing him on screen, he was dazzling in his talent. So I do think that there are people of the generation coming up today that are becoming aware of him, because there is this fascination with all things of the 90s. And he was certainly, emblematic of a lot in the 90s, even though he passed away, relatively soon into the 90s.
The 90s were a very unique period. And just like even in America, like we were out of the 80s where it was like very, greed is good, like the Reagan era. And like, it wasn't the 70s either, which was like very gritty. How would you describe sort of the landscape of Hollywood in the early 90s?
I feel like in some ways it was a very fertile time. Independent cinema had really started to explode in the late 80s. And I think there was a lot of exciting work happening in the 90s. I feel like it was, in a way, the last hurrah of Hollywood before things became so corporate, before boards of directors were deciding strictly about shareholder stock options, where people were still invested in cinema and really making movies and being artists. We were really the last generation that remembers life before cell phones. And there was just an innocence to that, and a purity to that, and a freedom to that, that led to great work and just a freedom to be young, certainly, and to be creative, and to not just be held under a lens. I feel so much for young actors today and what's required and expected of them to be a brand. There was no discussion of brand. You were an artist. We wanted to be De Niro. We wanted to be Pacino. We wanted to be Meryl Streep and Jessica Lange and Ellen Burstyn. And we wanted to be great artists. That's what we wanted to be. There was no discussion of a brand. I do remember towards the end of the 90s, things starting to shift. There was a magazine that came along called Maxim. And suddenly my representation was like, you should really do this. And I was like, would Meryl Streep do this? Would she be on the cover of a magazine in a bikini? I'm not doing that. That has nothing to do with what I'm interested in doing and becoming. Yeah, things changed in the 90s, but there was an innocence to the beginning of the 90s, pre-cell phone, that I'm so grateful I experienced and that I remember and know can exist.
Do you see sort of similarities with Johnny Depp's career also? Like, I mean, Johnny Depp's another one where he loves music in some ways, that sort of like performing. And then they do seem to have similarities as careers.
I suppose. I mean, Johnny's obviously gone on to have 30 more years of a career than River unfortunately had. You know, I think that as an artist and as a creative being, it's really important to have outlets that you are not monetizing, that are not there for anyone to co-opt or monetize or make something out of or profit from, but to have it be your own and be pure and true to it. My impression of Johnny is that he does it because he loves it. He's ultimately, he doesn't need it to survive. And he's not really interested in anyone's opinion, nor was River. He had a really unique style as a musician and was something he could lose time doing, being in the studio with his sister and with his friends, writing music and exploring.
Was he friends with Johnny at the time?
No.
Who were, other than his family, some of his closest friends in the industry, or were they all outside of the industry?
He really didn't have a lot of actor friends. No. He had some. I mean, Dermot was a friend of his. They had worked on a movie together years before. So they were kind of like brothers. They were quite close.
What do you think is the greatest legacy of River as an actor?
River was one of those actors who was incapable of being dishonest. He really was so riveting because he was so alive on camera. He demanded that of himself. He demanded that of other people in scenes with him. He was startlingly present. And that kind of courage and confidence just eats up the screen. It makes the film come to life. It was undeniable.
Where do you think River's career would have gone? Would he have stayed more comfortable in the indie sphere?
It's interesting to muse upon, and it's impossible to say, right? I mean, he was also a really passionate musician, and music meant the world to him. And he loved the work of acting and hated the machine around what was expected of you as an actor. That was not interesting to him. So it's hard to say if he would have continued and become an even bigger movie star, if that would have been of interest to him. There was an anonymity and an ability to be more abstract as an artist in his music. And of course, environmental work was very, very important to him. So I know that would have been a huge part of his journey.
Tell me a little bit about his animal activism, because it's such a big part.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, I was a meat eater when we started dating, and that horrified him to no end. I remember driving in Beverly Hills. I don't know where we were going or where we were coming from, but there were people on a street corner protesting for animal rights, and he pulled over and pulled all these pamphlets and stuck them in my face and just said, just look at this, look at this. And I was like, oh God, okay. I hear you. And I ended up being vegan for several years after that. I mean, he changed me. I can't say that I stuck with it, unfortunately, but he did have that effect on me for several years afterwards. He was incredibly sensitive to the suffering of others.
Including animals.
Yeah. I hope that his legacy as a human being overall is one of having been a tremendous artist and activist who deeply cared about the world and was a sensitive young man who left a mark forever in Hollywood and left a mark forever on Gen X. I think he was an iconic person for our generation, just like my parents talk about, they knew where they were when John F. Kennedy was killed. Pretty much everyone I know knows exactly where they were when River died. And what a loss of hope that was for our generation. But he leaves behind an incredible body of work that I hope is a real inspiration for the generations to come.
River Phoenix's story is one of brilliance and tragedy, and both his life and work illuminated the beauty and the darkness of the human experience. In our next episode, we discuss River Phoenix's lasting impact on those who knew him best and how his untimely death reshaped the conversation around addiction. We'll also examine the tragedy of a Hollywood life taken too soon. River was one of Hollywood's brightest young stars, whose final act was hampered by fame and drug addiction. Subscribe to Variety Confidential, the life and legend of River Phoenix, and leave us a review to share your thoughts. Join us next time as we continue to honor the legacy of a remarkable talent. Variety Confidential is hosted by Tatiana Siegel and produced by Karen Mizuguchi and Sydney Kramer. Written by Anna Moslin, Karen Mizuguchi, and Tatiana Siegel. Executive produced by Dea Lawrence. Variety's co-editor-in-chief Cynthia Littleton and Ramin Satude. Edited and mixed by Erin Greenewald. Variety Content Studio, executive producer Alex Hughes. Please refer to sources and citations on Variety.com.
I survived 9 months in captivity, and I've spent my life exploring how other people survive what should have destroyed them. I'm Elizabeth Smart, and these are the Survivor Files. Every week, I'm with survivors who lived through the unthinkable, abducted, stalked, controlled, and nearly silenced. These are stories about what it takes to make it out alive. Listen to the Survivor Files with Elizabeth Smart on the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
If your bookshelf and your For You page are equally important to your personality, welcome home. Pro Society is a weekly podcast that's part book club, part group chat for anyone who thinks Pride and Prejudice and Love Island deserve the same level of discourse. Each week, we're connecting the dots between books, the internet, and pop culture with your favorite writers, book talk creators, and plenty of overthought opinions. Yeah, I'm obsessed. Listen to Pro Society on the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Did you hear the new episode of the Hey Jonas podcast?
We are at D23, so we'll see who stops by.
The cast of Frozen stopped by. Kristen Bell, Josh Gad, and Idina Menzel.
I auditioned for Frozen.
What?
For Kristoff. They said, okay, what are you going to be singing today? I said, I don't know.
That must have been why you didn't get it.
That's probably why.
Plus, John Stamos, Hayden Christensen from Star Wars, and more.
And I guess I can share that...
No way.
Listen to the latest episode of Hey Jonas on the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
On the new podcast, Solita, we share the messy reality of traveling alone as a woman.
I can wait 4 hours for the next bus, or this random dude is offering me a ride on his motorcycle. I chose option B.
I'm Julie Pinheiro, and I travel by myself because it's a rare space where I can say yes without asking anyone else first. I'm on a mission to reclaim the word solita, trading the pity for possibility. Listen to Solita on the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.